Aloha, Chris Martin, here at North Street with my good friend Craig Thatcher.
Hello.
Today we're going to not talk about the ukulele. We should do that some other time.
Okay.
We'll do a little talk about the Martin
Yeah.
ukulele. I read something funny the other day, Craig, in doing my research for this talk about Hawaiian music and the development of instruments to facilitate the playing of Hawaiian music in front of larger audiences. And the one article I read, the author of the article said that it could be said in the 1920s that the Martin Company was a ukulele company that also made guitars. We made more ukuleles in this building in the 1920s than we did guitars.
Right here.
But that's not what we're going to talk about today. So give me that. Does it work?
Sure, it works.
What really jump-started the Hawaiian music craze was, and it took me a while to realize this, it was the Pan-Pacific Exposition.
Yes.
And I did not realize that that's an abbreviation for the Panama Pacific Exhibition, which was held in 1915 in San Francisco. I think to help San Francisco be reborn after a devastating earthquake
Yes.
and a fire. You worked on the Panama Canal,
I worked in Panama, and I was on the canal many times, yeah.
but you didn't help dig.
I didn't help build it.
You're not that. But you lent me this book.
Yes.
And this is a book. You've seen these, right? Old pictures of different areas. There's one about Nazareth. And in the book, they talk about the exhibition, reclaimed land. 18 million people. 18 million people visited this exhibition. And one of the most famous exhibits was about Hawaii. All things Hawaiian, including the music. I think it's important that we acknowledge something that we at Martin learned about fairly recently. We knew about it, but it was with the help of Kylan Reese, a luthier, repairman, and guitar historian who lives in Hawaii, that I became so excited by that missing link, guitar, that we made a reproduction of the Major Kealakai one-off model built through Ditson and Harry Hunt because he wanted a bigger, louder Hawaiian-style guitar, and he wanted us to make it.
Yes.
So we've made a reissue of that. We have one here. This is like the third generation. The first one had the original wacky Major Kealakai designed bridge, which certainly had a look. And as my friend Bill Jones said, Chris, it was a pain in the butt to install that bridge on a Martin guitar. So I thought if this model had stayed in the line, we would have eventually put a more contemporary looking bridge on it, a more Martin-esque bridge. There's something else going on with this guitar that I'm really excited about. This little cool little amp here. This doesn't have a pickup. Got an Oahu guitar back there. Look at that one with that pearloid headstock. Oahu was a publishing company, and during the 20s and 30s, and they published a method. And they sold the method, and along with the method, if you were so inclined, you could buy Oahu branded instruments. Why not? It's Hawaiian music craze. This guitar was for us the bridge to take us into and through the Hawaiian music craze. I was thinking about this thing, Craig. It's bigger than a triple O.
It is bigger.
It's a 12 fret.
Deeper.
So it's almost as if it's a 12 fret 4-0
Yes.
or a 12 fret M with an exceptionally deep body, and that's the key. The depth of the body is what we carry on to the next guitar we're going to talk about. So the exhibition happens, people go crazy for all things Hawaiian, including the music, and the musicians that were playing it needed louder guitars to play in front of larger audiences. And so in partnership with Ditson, and again, Harry Hunt, and my great-grandfather, we developed the first Martin Dreadnought guitar. And as you can see, it's a 12-fret, slot head, wide fingerboard, because that's what we were making. Everything we made up until that point, except maybe, an odd experiment here and there, was generally a 12-fret, wide fingerboard, slot head guitar, following in the tradition of the Spanish guitar. We're beginning to install steel strings, which makes a huge difference. And in Hawaii, not only did they embrace the ukulele, they embraced the steel guitar. And there were many different variations of it. During this period of time, dealers asking us for louder guitars, including guitars that may have some form of amplification. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we did anything like that. In fact, there are replies from Frank Henry that says, thank you very much, we're going to stick to what we know. We'll let other companies follow that because they have more interest and experience in it. So this is a Ditson 111 reissue. The Ditson brand is still out there. It's owned by a publishing company, and so we were very fortunate when we issued these to get permission from them. I want to thank them again so much for letting us do this to make this really cool historical reproduction of the first Martin Dreadnought guitar. Craig, you've played a lot of Dreadnoughts.
Yes.
What is your interpretation of the difference in tone between a 14 and a 12-fret Dreadnought?
There seems to be an openness, or as our colleague and friend Dick Boak describes, as a hollow sound. And it's a big, airy type sound. And it could be the break angle up here at the headstock. It could be the lack of material here. It could be the fact that everything is shifted down. Not exactly.
Yeah, so there is a difference.
There is a difference,
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So the Ditson, here's the production numbers. Introduced in 1916, sold 8.
Oh, all of those, okay.
Yeah. 1917, we sold 2, 3. We sold 3. The trend is going in the wrong direction. We peaked. The peak volume was in 1926. We sold 4 of them. 4.
Right.
Today, that model would be what we know as discontinued. No one wants it. What were we doing? We were making ukes, mandolins, going from the bowl to the flatback, and Martin Hawaiian style guitars. And we pulled a bunch of them out of the archives, often out of koa, why not, or mahogany. We have a 40H there, which is rosewood. That's very cool. So that's a very high-end Hawaiian style guitar. Some of these are set up for Hawaiian playing.
Several of them.
Several are. I don't know, Craig, if we ever made any square necks. I think what we did is we took a traditional Spanish-style Martin guitar of the day, 12 fret, and set it up for Spanish-style lap playing with a nut extender. And what's cool about this one, some of these have been converted. People find them out in the market and go, I don't want to play it with a slide. I'll take it to a luthier and convert it. This one has flush bar frets, so that's a big conversion. You're probably going to have to pull the fingerboard off because the frets were just visual. You weren't fretting the guitar in the traditional sense. You were using a slide. We were making Hawaiian-style guitars for some of our distributors before we made them for ourselves. For the Southern California Music Company, we made some. We have a Rolando here somewhere, which was a Martin that they branded. But then, we decided, hey, that's great for the geography that they distribute in, like Southern California or the California coast. But this Hawaiian music craze is national and even international. We need our own branded Martin Hawaiian style guitars. So, you know I love auctions. And I'm always pinging Craig, and sometimes I drag him out. Hey, let's go look at this musical instrument auction. So a year ago, I'm looking at the Aldurfer's auction, instrument auction, and I see this thing, and it's just an odd duck. I'm looking at it, going, what? It's a guitar. I will give you that. It's a guitar, but it's got a sound hole, right? So it's a guitar with a sound hole, but it has 4 F holes. Like, why? You know, I've seen arch tops with F holes. I've seen flat tops with sound holes, but I never saw a guitar with a sound hole and 4 F holes. What is that? It was an HG Gibson guitar. So I did a little research, but what struck me when I'm looking at the picture of this guitar on my computer was the picture from the back. And I looked at that picture and I said, you know, I know that shape. That's a very familiar shape to me. That, to me, looks like a 12-fret Martin Dreadnought. But it's 14-fret. And that intrigued me. So I bought it. And as you can see, it's a mess. And what I've learned is that generally most of these HG models do that. The other interesting thing is it has X bracing. That's cool, because not a lot of guitars back then, even if they had steel strings, that not all of them had X bracing. Some had transverse bracing, which is just, it's not good. It's not good. It's good on the back. It doesn't really help the sound at all on the top. It's got some kind of a sound enhancing baffle thing. So picture right around here, a piece of, I don't know what that is, maple or poplar, glued to the top, there it is, goes down almost all the way to the back, but there's a little space. So the theory, Craig, was that you would play the guitar, maybe on your lap, right? This one, of course, had a lot of work to it. So I've never, well, I did. I saw one original, but it was on display in a museum. So I've never held one that's kind of in one piece. The theory was you would play it, the sound would go down through the bridge, bounce around the inside of the guitar. Some of it would come out the sound hole, some would go underneath the baffle and come out the F holes. And I've read there's a little bit of a teeny little bit of a cult following for these on the internet, and people that like them say the sound is unique. It was the most expensive guitar of its kind that Gibson was making, and it did not sell very well. And so in the case of this, the HG-20 and its sister with a little more ornamentation, the HG-22, that was it. Came and went. Late 20s, early 30s, didn't sell well. It went into the discontinued pile. I'm not going to ask you to play this.
But
So I did a little research. And it turns out, and this is what really fascinates me about this whole journey I've been on, is there were 3 of these. There was the HG-20, the HG-22, and a larger version, the HG-24. And Gibson had the foresight to continue to make that size guitar. It's still in the Gibson line. Several iterations till this day of the Gibson Jumbo. I believe at first there was a Jumbo, then there was a J35, and now, of course, the iconic J45. I see. So this one is mahogany. It's a very cool guitar, right? So this is a reproduction of our first 14-fret guitar. It was a triple O, commissioned by a gentleman named Perry Bechtel, who was a famous vaudeville banjo player.
Yes.
Through the 20s. He saw towards the end of the 20s that the vaudeville thing was going away. And he said, well, okay, I'm too young to retire. And the guitar, the steel string guitar, seems to be becoming more popular than the banjo. I want to switch. Came to us and said, can you make me a guitar that feels and plays like a banjo? Can I get 15 frets? I think the conclusion was 15 frets may end up compromising the structure. Too much neck, not enough on the body. And so we took what at that time was our largest 000 size guitar, squared off the shoulders, borrowed from the arch top, the 14 fret neck, reoriented it so it wasn't flying up over the arch top, and made a prototype for him. He played it. He said, it works. And from that point on, we began to make more and more 14-fret steel string guitars.
And this is a long scale guitar, so it has a little bit more projection.
So the 12-fret Ditson Dreadnoughts were not selling very well. Ditson ends up being sold during the Great Depression, and we decide to put our name on the 12-fret Dreadnought guitar. It's Brandon Martin. Still didn't sell very well. In fact, I have to read this. The 14-fret orchestra model guitars appeared in late 1929. 14-fret guitars in style 017, 0017, 018, and 0018 were added to the line in 1932. However, Martin continued to make Dreadnought guitars as 12-fret instruments until the end of 1933. On March 1st, 1934, Martin sent the following letter to Chicago Musical Instrument Company, distributor of ours. We are wondering what you think of the new model D-28 guitar we sent you last week with the 14-fret neck. Have you had it tried by anyone also familiar with the 12-fret models, and what did they think of the tone? We would like to go further along this line, so we can hope you can let us have a report within a few days. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. I think it works.
It works, yeah. But it took a while. And I think what made it work was the 14-fret neck, right? Because it's the 12-fret steel string neck is a little clunky. You know, and you're a Strat player, right? So you like a narrow neck.
It's challenging
Yeah.
to play.
Okay, so talked about the HG, and I'm very fortunate to have picked up this book at the Gibson Garage in Nashville. Let me just find that. So it's interesting in this book, well, they talk about the LO and the L1. They were made in the 20s. My understanding is they didn't achieve much success because they weren't very deep, and people were looking for more bass, for a deeper, as we talked about, because there was no amplification. In the book, and this is what I find fascinating about this research I've done, they start by talking about the jumbo and the J35, and then the J45, the advanced jumbo, all those, yeah. And then after they do that, they talk about the Hawaiian guitars. But the Hawaiian guitars predate the jumbo. So I don't understand why the author did that. And that's part of why I wanted to do this model and why I wanted to do this talk, is the guitars that we built, the guitars that Gibson built, the guitars that Washburn built, Lyon and Healy, in the 20s, are the guitars that gave birth to the steel string guitar that people rave about in the 30s. And the connection, in my mind, is not often made. That if these guitars built by us, built by Gibson, were not made for Hawaiian music, the contemporary guitars, the guitars that we worship, the Dreadnought, the Jumbo, might not exist.
It's certainly a possibility.
So they came out with something that was a copy of a Martin Dreadnought with a 14-fret neck before we put a 14 fret neck
32.
on the Martin Dreadnought. We did in 34.
Yeah, 2 years.
So they were 2 years in front of us. And that is what makes me so excited about the next guitar. Hawaiian Coalwood, Martin Oahu brand I talked about, so very cool. This guitar, in my mind, Gibson should have made when they were also making the Jumbo. They should have made this smaller Dreadnought copy that we never made. We have the 728, but that's a 14 fret, not a 12 fret.
And it's not just a miniaturized guitar, you know, a miniature edition of a Dreadnought. It's something completely different.
Yeah.
It's a joy to play this instrument.
Thanks, Craig.
You're welcome.
Mahalo!